Welcome, art students. Today we're going to be continuing on with our positive and negative space drawing. Once we get to the point where we've scratched off our surface, like I am here, and we've also created our mind map, which mine is finished, it's time to move on. You're going to ask and get a piece of this white illustration board, in which case you're going to take your positive and negative space drawing and you're going to line it up, making sure that you have about a ½ an inch all the way around. Doesn't have to be perfect, but just eyeball it. And then you're going to take a small piece of tape and tape your drawing to the top so that we easily have access to lift it up and down. All right, once you've done that, it's time to start looking at your mind map and illustrating that memory. Remember, we're illustrating a memory, a personal memory that is evoked by a song that we chose. All right, so if you don't have this filled out yet, that's your next step, but otherwise it's time to move on. Again, I picked a song that reminds me of my grandmother. Okay. And now you have access to any and all materials in the room. Remember, collage, paint, watercolor, color pencils, pastels, oil pastels, variety of markers, regular graphite pencil, pen and ink. I have so many materials around the room. Remember, this is your studio space, and I would love for you to get up and find things and think outside the box with materials. Similar to this student who used embroidery on her sketchbook cover. There are tons of materials in this room, and I would love to see you use them in a unique and interesting way. Do not be afraid to get up and explore. Okay. Another option for you might be to use photographs as well. I also have magazines in the back, as well as lots of other types of papers, but I made a photocopy of this picture of my grandma and I'm actually going to use and insert somewhere behind my image, and then I'm going to probably draw and color on top of it or paint over top of it as well. And I have a color printer and be happy to print anything for you that you might want to get printed. Right? You have one goal in mind when you're creating this work besides illustrating that memory from your song, and that is to create a clear focal point for your work. So I want you to think about where you're going to draw the viewer's eye. Okay? Is it going to be towards the center? Is it going to be towards one of the sides? And how am I going to get my eye to focus there? Remember, we talked a lot about focal points, whether it's the use of color or whether it's the use of it being towards the center, or if it's the biggest area or the most concentrated, you creating contrast. How am I going to create a clear focal point for my work? Right? So once you're at this step, get yourself some illustration board, get yourself taped up here, and start thinking about how am I going to use these images from my mind map onto my piece of work. I realize it is going to be challenging. You're going to have to flip up your work, kind of draw, flip back down and look at it. That's part of the challenge of this assignment. Okay, so it's okay if your artwork goes into these borders. It's okay if it overlaps into the black areas. That is perfectly fine.